Hello, this is Michael with Parsimony, and we're going to talk about one of the features in Parsimony, which has to do with landed cost. So let's talk about your product costs. How much does one of them cost? That's an easy question, right? All you got to do is find the email, grab the purchase order, take a look at it, and you can see that you went and you bought item one. Maybe you bought 64 of them. They're crystal glass lampshades or something, and you bought them for 35 bucks each, and you're selling them for a ton of dough. And then you also sell, like, let's call it flag poles, and you bought 300 of those, and they're just flag poles, so they're only $3 each, but you're still making a heck of a margin on those. Okay, so we got 64 of the crystal lampshades and 315 of the flag poles. Now let me tell you how landed cost works. It turns out that it's more than just the product cost, right? Because you also paid for an inspection, and you've got someone in China that says, for every item on your purchase order for 200 bucks, I'll go over there, sample a number of them, and test them and make sure that they're all up to all the ones that I sampled are up to spec. And he does it for 200 bucks a batch. So you're gonna pay him 400 bucks and get each batch sampled. Then they're going to put them all into one container, and they're going to ship them over. And the cost of the container coming over is 1,400 bucks. And then when they land in, let's say, San Diego or something, you're going to get a customs bill. And crystal glass lampshades have a 10% tariff on them, but flagpoles only have an 8% tariff on them. And these are obviously all imaginary numbers. I'm not in the crystal lampshade business or the flagpole business. I'm just putting some numbers together for you. And then you go from the port of San Diego, you got to truck it out to an FBA location. And let's say that the trucking for that is 450 bucks for the container. He's just going to pick up the whole container and take it out. All right, so we want to know what our product cost is. So we know that the items that we bought, the two things at the two different prices, came to a total of about $3,200. And we're totally excited about all the margin that we've got built in there. And we know that we're going to take that 3,000 bucks and we're going to turn it into 10,500 bucks for a $7,300 gross profit on the thing. So we are set. There's so much money there. What could possibly go wrong? But then remember, we're going to get these other bills, right? The inspector dude's going to send us, maybe we paid him by PayPal, so we got an inspection bill, and then we got the ocean freight, and we got tariffs, and we got other stuff. All of that is going to come out to another 2,530 bucks, and then, as we all know, you're going to spend money marketing this stuff. Let's say that you have a hard and fast rule in the company that you never spend more or less than 20% of sales on that. So we're getting another $2,000 that we're going to do there. And then you get to what I call contribution, which is, I like the name and the number better than I do gross profit, because gross profit's really not a profit yet. We know that there are a bunch of other costs out there. The contribution is the money that these products contribute to the running of the business. Now we can take salaries and rent and some of the other stuff out of the equation. But how much did that item, after we attribute all of the cost to it, how much did that item contribute? So between the two of them, we think we're at about $2,700. But now let's look at them item by item. Instead of looking at it at the purchase order level, which was the two things that we bought, let's look at it item by item. So on item one, we start with the $6,400 in sales that we're going to make, and that said that we were going to have a 65% gross profit. And again, we're super excited about that. But what do we do about all of those other bills that came in? Do we just take it and split it between, half of those bills go to item one and half go to item two? I mean, they're all on the same PO. They were all in the same container. Why don't we just split it and put it into each one? Well, if you do that, that says that you've got a contribution of $1,600 on item one and of $1,000 on item two. And that kind of works out because your contribution numbers are almost identical, but it's pretty different in terms of your investment in the products, right? You invested $2,200 in cost of goods versus $900. So it was twice the investment, and you got back, 50% more dollars. But that's assuming that we were just kind of splitting these costs up. It's pretty easy to figure out what to do about the inspection costs. We can put those in each place. What about the ocean freight? And then the customs bill, pretty easy, right? Because that's by item, so we can allocate that. But then what about that same container getting trucked to FBA? Well, let's break it down and take a look at it. So here's our container, and we're going to fill it up. So there's our crystal glass lampshade, and it comes in its own box, and we can put, for half a container or so, we can put 4 boxes across, 4 boxes high, and you can't see it very well here, but they're 4 boxes deep through the container also, okay? And then the flagpoles ship in a tube, and there's a star insert in there, so we can actually put 5 flagpoles per tube in there. They're kind of tubes inside of a tube. And so we're going to go ahead and stack those in the container. And again, they're flagpoles. They go all the way across the bottom of the container. So we can put in 9 across and 7 high. So we end up with 63 master packs, and each master pack has 5 items in it. So we actually, in this container, have 379 products, 64 of the lampshades and 315 of the flagpoles. And then you'll remember we paid $35 and $3, so there's our purchase order, and it came out to a total of $3,185 for the cost of goods. Now we got to deal with this ocean thing. And we talked about taking the 700 and splitting it between the two. And if we take 700 and divide it by the 64, we come out to $10.94 per item that we need to add to our true cost of goods, right? If we want to know the landed cost, the cost of that product landed in our warehouse or in the FBA warehouse, we'd have to add almost $11, or just $2 on the flagpoles. But there's another way to split this bill up. Rather than just saying we had 2 items, they each get half the freight bill, we could say, we had way more items in here. So let's base it on the total number of items. Remember, we had 379 items, and 315 of those were the flagpoles. So I don't know the math there. It looks like it's probably, more than 2/3, more than 3/4 probably. So 3/4 of the freight bill based on the quantity should come down. And so what we do is we say total items, 1,400 divided by total items, everybody gets $3.69 per item on there. But remember, we got just dumb old flagpoles and we got crystal glass lampshades. So maybe we should say, what was the total cost of goods, right? In this case, about 70% of the cost of goods. The value in that container was in the lampshades. So why don't we take the 1,400 and figure out what percent we've got here, and it turns out that it's $15.38 per unit here, and only $1.32 on the flagpoles. So there's some of our math on that, but you see, we end up at a place where we have either $2 on the flagpole, close to $4, or a little over, $1.32. That's a pretty radical difference on something we paid $3 for. So visually, it comes out like this. On item 1, we could have a place where we would have a cost of goods of $38 if we just took this low number, this $3.69 cost, and added it to our regular cost of goods of $35. That brings us to $38.69. And it says 10% was freight and 90% was cost of goods. Or if we decided to choose the other allocation method, we could say $15 plus $35 is $50, and 31% is freight and 70%, 69% is cost of goods. So you could say, well, shoot, I like this 10% number a lot better. But if you do that, what it means is that 10% that you're allocating there means that you've chosen this 369, which means the 369 here goes over, and 369 is more than 3 here. So that comes out to 669. So now on your flagpoles, more than half of the cost of goods is freight. And the balance then is the actual PO price. Alternatively, you could say, I want to take the number that comes out to the 31%. And in this case, that's going to be this $15, and only put $1.32 on the flagpoles, and that gets me this kind of a balance. You have a choice here. What I'm trying to show you is that the choice you make makes a difference in your products, okay? So this page has got a bunch of numbers on it, but we know now that looking at what was the cost of our product, which was our opening question, this is not the cost of our product, right? That $35, could be as much as $50. This $3 could be as much as $6, depending on what we chose to do with ocean freight and with trucking it to the FBA and things like that. So if we break it up on quantity, that is, we take the total number of items out there and distribute it based on items, we get to a place where only 4% of our income statement is allocated to ocean freight for item 1, and 28% on our P&L is allocated to ocean freight on item 2. So that says that we are really favoring the lower cost. Maybe we need to be more price competitive on this item. Maybe this is something where we just make a ton of money on the buy and it's not a competitive market, or we've got a great strong brand, or we've got other value adds, and it can withstand a higher ocean freight allocation. If we wanted to pick something, and that's a choice, if we wanted to pick something where it was more evenly distributed, we would say, based on the total value of the purchase order that was in that container, we're going to use the money that we allocated for different cost of goods, we're going to use that same method to allocate the freight. And if we do that, it says that about 15%, that freight accounts 15% on the P&L and 10% on the P&L for item 1 and for item 2. Okay? And then you can see what happens when you push that all the way down. Your fancy item that you paid all the money for has a 19% contribution and a 36% contribution from the flagpoles, which means going forward, you might want to put more money into flagpoles. Alternatively, you could say, hey, the brand was built on crystal lampshades. Look at the margins that we're getting. This is really just a kind of a high volume thing. There's never any warranties or claims. It's a super easy thing, and we're okay with this kind of margin. That's a business decision you can make, but what you need to have are the tools to make that decision. And with Parsimony and the power of Parsimony, you get 2 specific tools. One is the ability to add these items and get them onto your cost of goods, so that they're not just a kind of a cost of doing business line item someplace where you don't really know. And then 2, when it comes time to actually allocate those items, you have choices about how you want to allocate them, either by quantity or by value. But those are options that you've got in the system to take the PO that comes in for 2 items and spread it across those items. That's how landed cost works on Parsimony, and we hope that this was helpful to you. Thanks.